We're knocking this out in the middle of the snowstorm. Okay, this is SSL 384-B, jurisdiction, who may file petition. The proceeding is brought in blank, which has blank, blank, blank over termination of parental rights. Proceeding is brought in blank. Family court. So the proceeding is brought in family court, which has exclusive original jurisdiction over termination of parental rights. Again, that's exclusive original jurisdiction over termination of parental rights. Remember, we're not talking about surrogates courts. We're talking about family court. Has full, exclusive original jurisdiction over termination of parental rights. Remember, 384B is all about this TPR, termination of parental rights. Only and blank blank, such as social services, district or blank blank agency may file a petition to termination of parental rights under this section. So it's an authorized agency, only an authorized agency, such as social services, district, or I believe this is social services again, authorized agency again, authorized agency may file a petition to terminate parental rights under this section. Okay, we're going to continue with 384B, 3C. Filing requirements of the petition. The petition must state specific statutory grounds, including, so this is what the petition needs to state. The requirements, filing requirements of the petition. This must be in the petition. The factual basic for termination. Why? What are the facts presented that say, hey, we need to terminate parental rights? So the factual basis for termination. The efforts made by the agency, if required. Remember, if there is neglect, severe abuse, then the agency is not required. Okay, but if that's not the case, they're required to have made efforts to try to reunite the child and the parent, right? They don't want to terminate the paternal rights. They're trying their hardest. So the efforts, the court wants to know what efforts were made by the agency, if required. If those extreme circumstances don't exist, they're required to make efforts and provide services to help these families stay together. So the factual basis for termination, the efforts made by the agency, if required, the length of time the child has been in care. Again, the length of time the child has been in care, and the status of parental contact and planning. Remember that whole thing with the abandonment is 6 months, or like the parent just disappeared and for some like a year or some shit. That's why they're asking, what is the status of the parental contact? Has a parent, been in contact, and have they been planning, to see the child? So that's what that's about, the status of parental contact and planning. Okay, next. Grounds for termination. This is again SSL 384B. And here it is. Abandonment. 5A. A parent is deemed to have abandoned a child for 6 months. The parent fails to visit or communicate. That's under abandonment. And then here we go with the really, really bad shit. Permanent neglect. Permanent is like a year. So remember, abandonment it's still severe, but I'm saying like permanent neglect. Think permanent is the longer amount of time. It's a year. Abandonment is 6 months. So permanent neglect. A parent may lose rights if for more than 1 year they fail to maintain contact. That was the other card. Remember, we're talking about contact and planning. Maintain contact with the child or plan for the child's future. So that's permanent neglect, 1 year. Mental illness or intellectual disability. And then finally, severe or repeated abuse. That's 6A. And 8. I think I can't read what it says. So dark. So remember about the requirements for the agency. If required, remember that card, that the efforts made by, that has to be on the petition, that will the efforts the agency made if required. Well, if there's been severe or repeated abuse, they're not required to make efforts under those circumstances. So just keep that in mind. Very sad shit. This is very, very sad. SSL 384B, because it's about terminating parental rights. That means that's it. They're losing their kid. Because either they're not doing right by them, or anyhow, or they have mental or intellectual disability. All right. Next is the burden and standards of proof. The agency bears the burden of proof and blank. Establish grounds for termination by blank, 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 blank. I'm not sure what that is. Let's see. Must. Must? Okay. The agency bears the burden of proof and must establish grounds for termination by clear and convincing evidence. So this is SSL 384 3G. The agency bears the burden of proof and must establish grounds for termination by clear and convincing evidence. This is serious business. You're breaking up families. They need to have the clear and convincing evidence. This is under burden and standard of proof. SSL 384. We're still on SSL 384-B. A petition to terminate parental rights under SSL 384B may be filed by, so who can file the petition to terminate parental rights? An authorized agency. And this is 384B3B. So again, a petition to terminate parental rights under SSL 384B may be filed by an authorized agency. This is all relative to the family law. Remember family law, where it's like the presentment agency and all of that shit? Authorized agency. All right. Before termination of parental rights on the grounds of permanent neglect, the authorizing agency must make diligent efforts unless an exception applies. This is SSL 384B7F. Again, before